I recorded the entire process of putting a video together. And, do you want to watch the painter paint, or do you just want to look at the painting? Probably just the painting. But I sometimes like to watch people put their work together. So maybe you'll enjoy this a little bit. The first thing I'm doing is structuring the project files, which isn't glamorous, but it is important to do correctly, because when you have as many projects as I have going, if the project files aren't in order the same way every single time, the process can become a nightmare. So I have a template of folder structures that I use in every project, and I also have a filing system for the clients that I'm working with, and you're kind of getting a little bit of a glimpse into that right now. Now I've imported the files, the video files from the client, and I'm looking at the notes on exactly where he wants the videos cut. It's just a matter of looking at the times and placing an in point and an out point on each clip, and then doing that over and over again until all the client's requests have been cut. At the end of the process, I'll have a single timeline with all of the clips in one long, sort of unedited video, and that's provided to the client as well, sort of as a rough cut, assembly cut. And then after this process is done, I will be, adding the graphics and smoothing the transitions, stabilizing clips, sometimes adding titles if the client requested it, and in general, just making it entertaining. So sometimes the client has given me notes based on an idea, and once it's put onto the timeline, it needs a little bit of fine tuning, because you can't imagine all the potential issues that might come up. But some of these clips might be unusable in parts for it to remain entertaining to the audience. But I always like to see how the clients are stringing their clips together, because there's sort of like little subtext and meaning in these edits for the reason why the client chose them. So it's fun to me to do this work. And I also have noticed that Paul, the client, has given me 2 versions of the video he wants. So I have the full string of all clips, and I have version A and version B. And that's it. That's how we put these projects together in the sort of like organizational aspects. Now, the next part is going to get into the creative side. Well, the first thing I'm going to do to make this clip look better is make it less crooked. It's sort of like stabilizing the clip, but it's a manual process, and you do it using keyframes, and you rotate the picture, and then you kind of animate the rotation to slowly adjust as needed to keep certain things close to the same spot. In this case, since we're mostly concerned about the rotation, we're going to actually use reference points on the screen to keep them straight. And I'm using the stage as one of my lines and the roof of that patio area as the other line. We can't fix everything when there's big jitters like that. We can't, if we adjust for those, it'll look weird. But overall, if we can keep our keyframes like that, where you see on the left side of the screen, kind of loose and flowing and not making big, huge motions all at once, it will look much smoother, straighter, and it won't be obvious that we did any sort of effect to make that happen. The next thing we're doing is using keyframes on the audio to make the transition between the 2 clips less jarring. So when there's kind of a bleed on the audio into the next clip, the cut that happens seems less jarring. And this one was cool. You'll listen to it. So unexpectedly, that was the end of the song, and it just kind of did its own fade out. So it kind of made for a nice transition. I'm thinking that the next thing I do is the same. I just rotate the clip on animation with keyframes, just like I did previously, to make it straighter. I don't like to scale up too much because we lose the edges when we do that, but we do have to scale up a little bit when we're doing this rotation trick. So as soon as we can get back to 0 rotation, we should scale it out if we can. If not, we have to leave it cropped, and then we can use the position keyframes left and right on the x-axis to adjust for anything that might be getting cut out too much on the edges of the frame. You just have to watch and make sure that you're not losing too much. Sometimes you can get away with leaving nice long clips up there because there's something interesting happening. I can only take so much credit for these videos being good. Sometimes they just are, captured in the perfect moment, and you can't really figure out what went right, but it did. All right, this next clip was a little bit of a nightmare because there was such a big motion in it. So I think even though I tried to do the same trick with the rotation and the position, I ended up scrapping it because it didn't work. So I used the warp stabilizer in the program. That's sort of an automatic process. And I did a cool thing because I know when you use that and it's too much rotation and too much stabilization that it has to do, that it's going to kind of crop. You're going to see the blackness on the edge like that. So I ended up putting the logo underneath this and it almost looked like they were like sinking underwater, which is cool because the logo with this band is like water. So I wanted it to look like they were swimming, and that was my inspiration for how it turned out in the end, which was pretty cool, and you'll see that later. Alright, so one quick little thing I'll say right now is that avoid putting too many effects on your clips early. Try to save the effects for the last bit, because when you're editing with heavy effects, your computer, see that red line above those clips now? It's going to have trouble playing those clips, and every time I try to play them, I'm going to have to wait, or I'm going to have to watch it all jittery, and it's hard to edit like that. So, it's unavoidable that you will never use those effects, but try to use them at the very end. There is a quick button where you can turn off effects if it's getting too out of hand, but at some point you're going to have to turn them back on to look at them before you export them. So just wait. I'm bringing in the graphics now. So I had kind of gotten to the end of the first timeline, and I know that the people I work with generally want to promote something. So I try to put their logo prominently throughout the video in several interesting places, and I use the overlays, the blending effects to make it look cool when I can. The next thing I'm going to show you is a common problem. I am jumped over to the version B of the timeline now, so this is a new set of clips. I haven't put the graphics on here yet, and I haven't sort of cleaned it up. So you saw that cell phone sneak in there on the left-hand side of the picture. We're going to get rid of that. And that's just a matter of using keyframes to scale the video up as that phone creeps in, and keep the position of like your interest point centered as much as possible, which in this case is the guitarist Lowell. And, it takes a little bit of tweaking till you get it exactly right, but it's worth it. And it ends up looking kind of cool, like a zoom, a slow zoom, like we're really focusing in on something cool, and we are. But little does the audience know we're hiding something ugly in the corner of the frame, and they will never know. So that's a cool little trick that you get when you hire an editor to do this kind of stuff. Okay, so I've jumped ahead a little bit. I've done a little bit more work in these timelines, but I wanted to stop here because sometimes there's an issue with the clips that I get just not really being up to par for the quality that it's going to take to keep somebody watching. So I do take liberties with some of these notes that I've gotten from the client because I can't stabilize this clip enough to make it work throughout. So I kind of look at where I do have to do some major surgery, and this was one of those moments. And I ended up just cutting the beginning of the request from the client till about, here, where I thought maybe I could stabilize it enough to somehow make it work, because I don't want to completely eliminate it. It was part of the client's request, but it was kind of an awkward clip. So, it is what it is. I just do the best with what I can, and I'm using a graphic here to sort of just transition out, like, okay, maybe that's where people stop watching actually, and this last little bit is just a bonus. If I can make it work. And it's, still that looks a little bit too unstable to me. So I'm probably, in a case like this, going to attempt to use the warp stabilizer effect, which comes with Adobe Premiere Pro, and hope for the best. Here's an interesting situation where I don't like to take video out of sync from the clips, from the audio, especially with music and dancing. I try to do this as little as possible, but this clip from the client had some unusable moments in it and a lot of good moments. So I ended up kind of trying to cut those moments out while not being too distracting that it wasn't exactly in sync. Because like right there, I'm going to make a cut. Instead of keeping that whip pan over to the stage, that's going to be cut out. But there I have some repeated action, so I'm still trying to fine tune exactly where these cuts are going to be. I don't want it to look like I've cut time out. So I'm going to cut that whip pan out too, and probably when Lowell walks back into frame will be a good moment for it to show that he's right there and he's walking right into frame, even though it didn't happen in that order. It's kind of hard to explain. You just kind of have to watch how I'm cutting and moving stuff around in there. That takes some practice to remember which clips you've cut, which clips are keeping, and some patience. So another cool part about having an editor is I can do that stuff. Still have some mistakes. You see that's a repeated action there, so I'm just going to probably delete that, or delete it, and I'm just going to keep dragging out and see if I can still utilize that. Yeah, and I think that's what I ended up doing. Cut it somewhere in there. Another case where I had been given instructions to end the video with this All Right Now song, but the focus in the notes was that there was a kid in the shot who was dancing, and they liked that, and I like it too because he's interacting with Lowell, and they kind of look the same the way they're dancing. It's just that Lowell's like the big version of him. So it ended up being a cool thing that the client requested, but I, in order to make it work, again took some things out of sync. So I saw that Lowell pointed there. That was kind of the point that the kid was in the shot, and the next clip is the kid there dancing. So I'm gonna kind of do a little bit of rearranging to make this work, and you'll see I put that clip back in there. I'm trying to find the cut point, and I'm looking for that moment where he points out, because that's where, okay, something's there, and I think I've found my moment. Now we have the point, and what's he pointing at? Unlinking the audio so that it doesn't seem like anything like the audio underneath just continues on. Kind of hides that cut. It's just fine-tuning these. I can't really explain exactly where my head's at when I'm doing this. I'm just kind of like reacting on instinctual impulses. But the basic idea is you're just trying to look for the best moments and make it look like it's not cut up. And that's pretty much it. I'm not going to torture you anymore with this. I do appreciate you watching this long, and hopefully it was somewhat educational to you about how to edit collage videos together. I'll just kind of let the rest of this play out for the last couple of minutes, and you can keep on watching as long as you'd like. Let me know if you like this video. Should I make more of these? Any suggestions? And I will definitely try to do more as I can, if you want that.